Welcome back to AM Northwest. Are you answering emails at 3 a.m., texting with friends instead of getting together, picking up your phone every time it dings? Yes, yes, yes. Here to share why it might be time to disconnect, we welcome the author of Please Unsubscribe. Thanks. How to Take Back Your Time, Attention, and Purpose in a Relentless World. Filmmaker Julio, Vincent Gambuto. Good to have you with us, Julio. So, yeah, I can relate to all of this, as I think a lot of our viewers can. But what inspired you to write this book?
Well, it was really during the pandemic. I spent about 6 months alone in an apartment in New York City. I came out of that with a real understanding that my life had been sort of going and going and going and was consumed with pinging and ringing and dinging. And I wanted to make a really big change. And so I spent about 6 months coming off of as many platforms as I could, everything from unsubscribing to emails to doing some sort of deeper thinking about my life. And it inspired the book, and I wrote it.
So what did you learn from doing all of that, from unsubscribing? Like, what, you unsubscribe from emails, which I think we all need to do because we get so much junk mail. But there were many other things you did as well.
Completely. I mean, I started with emails. That was the easiest and most obvious, lowest hanging fruit. And that kind of kicked off this whole process of reevaluating not only what was coming at me digitally, but what was coming at me physically, who was calling on the phone, how I was organizing my social calendar, who was in my life, everything kind of down to how I thought about who I was in the world as a professional and who I was in the world to my family. It really kind of kicked off a very deep process for me that I detail in the book.
Okay, what's so bad about all of this? I mean, what's so bad about, texting somebody? What's so bad about ordering online? What's so bad about all of that?
Well, it seems to have reached a tipping point across the society where we no longer can differentiate between, things that are happening digitally and things that are happening in the real world in front of us, or at least we're not spending enough time kind of in the human parts of the human experience. Is that my opinion? Yes, it is. But I think if you look even in the data and in the research, we're seeing that too much time online is having an effect on our teenagers, specifically on our teenage girls, that social media and too much time on social media is leading to a lack in confidence and is leading to a lack in sort of the ability to socialize and resolve conflict in the real world. So I think it's having an effect. It certainly hasn't started recently. We're about 10, 15 years into this. But it has real world effects. I don't think technology is evil. I don't think that one should go live in the woods alone. But I do think it's worth stepping back. And we've been trained not to step back. We've been trained to constantly be on the go, to buy into this always on lifestyle. And I want to tell people that there's great value in creating a space for yourself where you can really reevaluate all of it.
What do you like? I feel like some of the things that I can personally speak to is I have a very short attention span now. Like if it's longer than a couple paragraphs, I'm really not going to be interested. Is that what you find as well with people in general?
Completely. And, as a filmmaker too, we're trained to make sure that we're hooking people and that we're engaging people immediately and that we hold attention in our work. It's really tough to hold attention across a 2-hour movie or, a 2,000 word essay or something like that. Our attention span has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. And everyone from professionals to children really are looking at things. And if they're not hooked immediately, they're moving on because there's 47 other things vying for their attention.
Yeah, you stopped texting and started calling people, like actually calling people. How did that go over with your friends?
It freaks people out. They think there's an emergency. They think there's something wrong. Sometimes I try to give them a heads up if I haven't spoken to them in a while. I'll email just to say, hey, do you want to jump on the phone and catch up? But otherwise, I just pick up the phone and call. And a lot of people are just really grateful for the connection. Really grateful that there's someone on the other end of the line that's not a broken, disconnected text conversation. And those are useful in some circumstances for some things, for sure. When you need efficient information, when you need things quickly, when you're making an appointment, things that, are just easier to do that way.
Right.
But human relationships, friendships, everything from your best friend to someone you haven't talked to in years, I advocate that those are sort of better grown and molded and crafted and with as much human interaction as you can get.
What adjustment or change did you make in your life that may have been the most challenging for you?
The most challenging was the phone for sure. I switched originally from an iPhone to a non-digital. Well, it's digital, but it doesn't. It only has certain like 10 different apps on it. It's called the Jitterbug, which is marketed to senior citizens. but I bought a Jitterbug for $100.
I knew it sounded familiar. Okay.
And I used it for 2 years before the thing completely stopped working. I mean, at the end of the day, it's actually not in my experience was not a very good piece of technology. So now I'm back to an iPhone, but I limit myself with this app that measures my screen time and will actually block apps on my phone. I limit myself to 10 apps on my phone, and I limit myself to 10 apps in my laptop screen. And just for me, in my experience, that has just turned the dial down on the noise. It stopped the pinging and the ringing and the dinging. It's never gone completely, but it has certainly made things much more manageable.
We're taking in a lot of information, and much of it may be false information, which is part of the problem, right?
It's a huge problem, especially in a political season like this one. The more connected we are, the more exposed we are to constant messaging. Boundaries get eroded, and the boundary between truth and and lies gets eroded very, very quickly. I write about that in the book. I think the book does a good job of staying at least reasonable in its politics. But ultimately, this is what we're seeing across the political spectrum and across social media and across all of our media is the ability to manipulate, the ability to put disinformation out there.
Right.
I mean, Apple's coming out with its new phone, and it allows consumers and it allows users to just take things out of a picture. That seems like a really cool, kind of sexy thing that we have the ability to do. But ultimately, you're talking about manipulating images.
Right.
You're talking about putting a curated version of your life out there on your social media. So if we can do that as users, as consumers, imagine what a political campaign can do. Imagine what a multi-billion-dollar corporation can do.
We need to talk again. We need to talk again.
Sure.
The book again is titled Please Unsubscribe. Julio Vincent Gambuto, thank you so much. Great information.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right, we'll be right back with more AM Northwest. Don't go away.